Alright people, welcome back to Conquer & Commander. Today we're going to be doing a deck tech featuring my Borborygmos Enraged deck that I made specifically for Pure MTGO's Land Week. So first of all, why don't you go to Pure MTGO and check it out, and check out all the cool Land Week based articles. This is the deck list that's going to be up, and I will put a link to it in the video description as well. Still actually got to finish writing this thing, so you'll have it all there and available. And you know, when I heard it was Land Week, I knew I wanted to build around Borborygmos because he just throws lands at people. He's not. I haven't seen him too much. I mean, I know I've played against him once or twice, but looking at him, he is a very large Cyclops with trample. And obviously you're going to have a land-based theme. The first thing that sticks out when you look at Borborygmos is his mana cost. He costs 8 mana, which even when you're playing green is a whole crap ton of mana. So, you know, that's something that you have to definitely take into account. And if you're building around Borborygmos, and I'll let you guys know up front, this deck is built around Borborygmos, you're just going to put a ton of effort into making sure you can cast him. And then you're going to put a ton of effort into making sure that you're going to be able to get lands into hand so you can throw stuff. Obviously, when he hits, you can take a look at the top 3 cards and put those lands into your hand. But it also means that you're going to be dumping stuff into your graveyard as well, which means you're going to want a little bit of recursion at least. And then finally, you can toss lands, which is why we really like Borborygmos to lightning bolt people. And there's 1 or 2 ways to really abuse that ability. So, knowing that we're going to need a little bit of recursion, a lot of ramp, and some land-themed stuff, this seemed really good to build around. So let's talk about the stuff that that I used to ramp. I used not just green-based ramp, but artifact-based ramp as well, because the sooner you get Borborygmos out, the better. Because in all honesty, if you're stuck at 6 mana and you can't cast Borborygmos, you're kind of boned. I mean, yes, you can get around it a little bit by like getting Avenger of Zendikar out there or something like that. But for the most part, like, it's really about playing and getting Borborygmos out there. So we've got stuff like Mana Vault, Soul Ring, Exploration to play extra lands, because you're going to be drawing a decent amount of lands. Grim Monolith. You know, there's actually I forgot one card to put over here, which is Mana Crypt. Yes. Explore to draw and play an extra land. Nature's Lore, 3 visits. Lotus Cobra. Landfall is a minor theme in this deck, and Lotus Cobra can generate a ton of mana. Rofellos, because he can tap for a lot of mana. The deck doesn't have Gaia's Cradle because it typically doesn't produce a whole ton of creatures. There's only really 14 creatures in the deck, but Rofellos can usually tap for a lot. Cultivate, Journey of Discovery, Kodama's Reach, Realms Uncharted. This is probably the first or second time I've played with Realms Uncharted, and I'll admit that I'm not the best at using it, but it is an instant speed way to make sure that you get at least 2 more lands in your hand. And most of the time, the lands are very helpful in this deck as well. Sprouting Vines, it is a storm card that lets you put basics directly into your hand, so you can chuck them at people when you have Borborygmos out there. And I found it at a minimum I got 3 cards or 3 lands out of my hand when I used this. Azusa helps you play lands. Courser of Krufix is another one. Yavimaya Elder, Monvuli Acid Moss. Yes, there are some lands out there that are problematic. It provides ramp, as does Skyshot Claim. Garruk Wildspeaker is used primarily as a ramp engine. Oracle Moldiah. Boundless Realms. You know, sometimes you just want to get all your land out there. And then Green Sun Zenith. This is primarily to do a first turn Dryad Arbor, but it can also grab some threats and stuff as well. And then finally, Mana Crypt that I said. So it's got a lot of ramp here. This is not a minor amount of ramp. Now, like I said, there is a little bit of a landfall theme and a land-based theme. So Escape Shift obviously helps that with your landfall. Rampaging Balos is another guy that likes landfall, and Avenger of Zendikar. All these guys like the landfall a lot. Rebel Hulk actually you do have plenty of possibilities of having more than 14 lands out, and with Borborygmos, Rubble Hulk can sometimes turn him into a one-hit commander kill. So he seemed pretty cool. I'll be honest, I never got the opportunity to actually use Rubble Hulk like that, but it seemed like a lot of fun. And the Blood Rush ability is small enough where it shouldn't be a problem. Now, we are playing Gruul colors, which means that our ability to draw cards isn't the best, but it also, since we're not running a whole ton of fat creatures, we can't use stuff like Greater Good or Momentous Fall, which are cards that I really like using most of the time. But there are some options here. Garruk Primal Hunter, if you have Borborygmos out there, is a draw 7 for 5 mana. Reforge the Soul. Typically, you don't really mind having stuff in your graveyard, so using Reforge the Soul or Wheel of Fortune or Memory Jar isn't really going to hurt you too much. Mind's Eye should help you. There's Memory Jar. Abundance obviously works well with Sylvan Library. You can either, you can manipulate your draw so that you get 3 free draws, or you can decide, you know what, I'm just going to draw a bunch of lands when I have draw effects, so that I can throw them with Borborygmos. Seer Sundial continues with the landfall theme. Snake Umbra and Keen Sense are both very good in that they sort of do mini combos with Borborygmos, because what you can do is throw lands at people to draw cards. You don't have to use combat damage for it, and if you have Life from the Loam in your graveyard, you can actually use it to loam a bunch of lands into your hand and then continue using loam for as much mana as you have. And when you're throwing like 3 lands or 9 damage for every 2 mana you have, that adds up really quickly. So Keen Sense and Snake Umbra work well. There's Wheel of Fortune and Sylvan Library. I use Sylvan Library pretty liberally to draw extra cards for that 4 damage, even though there's no real life gain in the deck as well. I talked a little bit about recursion. So Creeping Renaissance, Eternal Witness, Regrowth, and Groundskeeper can all get lands back into your hand or other valuable cards as well. I went with Creeping Renaissance over Praetor's Council just because it costs less and you can flash it back. Yes, you're not going to be able to get your whole graveyard back into your library, or I'm sorry, your whole graveyard back in your hand, but usually being able to cast it should be enough to get you going. The deck does have the possibility, if you're dredging a lot, of decking itself. And originally I thought, due to Life from the Loam, originally I thought that dredge could replace any draw so that you wouldn't deck yourself, but I've learned recently, and I guess it's true, I'm not a dredge expert, so I don't really know much about this, that you can only dredge if you have at least 3 cards in your library. So be aware of that. I had at least 2 games where I came close to dredging myself to death. But Life from the Loam is obviously an excellent weapon in this deck, especially if you have Borborygmos out in play. So it's amazing. Another land-based card is Crucible of Worlds. Obviously, you're going to have lands in your graveyard, either as a result of Scape Shift or the fact that this deck runs a bunch of fetch lands as well. Storm Cauldron is more of a finisher than anything, and I'll be honest, it seemed really good in theory, but I never actually cast it when I played it. I'm not sure if it's really entirely necessary. But if you play Borborygmos and you've got a bunch of lands in play, you tap them all with Storm Cauldron, you can just huck them at people directly. So it's at least worth a shot. Lightning Greaves and Snake Umbra are really your only 2 ways of protecting Borborygmos. If Borborygmos gets tucked, you're going to have a real hard time. Basically, the only ways to get him back are Gamble and Green Sun Zenith. The deck, yes, like I said, you can run Avenger of Zendikar out there or Rampaging Balos and go nuts, but that's the minority of games. So Gamble is also good at getting things that you need when you need them. No deck is complete without some destruction and ways to deal with stuff. So we've got Vandal Blast, Nature's Claim, Deglamer. I think any green deck right now, at least until Born of the Gods and the whole Theros block is gone, needs Unravel the Aether and Deglamor. There are a ton of gods running around out there. Even if people aren't playing them as their commanders, they're using them as support cards, and both of these guys are cheap ways of getting rid of gods, at least for a while. Scavenging Ooze is the only method of graveyard hate that I have on the deck. Oblivion Stone, Beast Within, Chaos Warp, Acidic Slime, and Blasphemous Act. Blasphemous Act isn't an issue in this deck because most of the time you're not going to have a whole ton of lands out there. So the deck does have a high land count. There's 42 lands in the deck. The lands basically run on top of Ancient Tomb. I've got all the fetch lands that you can run. Specialty lands include Raging Ravine. There's Wooded Foothills, Windset Teeth, Verdant Catacombs. So also the cycling lands: Forgotten Cave, Smoldering Crater, Slippery Karst. All those guys. Dryad Arbor again is in here. Tranquil Thicket. I'm running snow lands because originally I had like Mouth of Renam in the deck, or Scrying Sheets or something like that, and I ended up taking it out because I wanted more like mountains and stuff like that. I just never replaced the snowlands, so the snowlands are not necessary in the deck. So obviously, like on top of that, we've also got Kessig Wolf Run, which is great. High Market is out there just to protect Borborygmos from being tucked. Reliquary Tower, I'll be honest, not really sure I need it in the deck, but if you do Creeping Renaissance and get a bunch of lands back in your hand, and you want to keep them in your hand for defense, that's always good. And then Street Mine and Tectonic Edge. Yes, this deck does have the possibility of having Strip Mine with Crucible of Worlds and Azusa. Never came up. It's not something I would tend to do, but feel free to do it if you want. Let's just take a look at the mana curve real quick and the stats. The average converted mana cost of the deck is 3.12, which is really on the low end, but when you're really trying to cast an 8 mana spell consistently, it's not as low as you think. And you are going to have games where, and I'll even put it over here so that we can see things by converted mana cost. So you will occasionally have games with this deck where you don't get the ramp you need and things are slow. In which case you're just sitting back and looking non-threatening. But you will also have games where you get Borborygmos out on the 4th or 5th turn and you start going nuts. The deck, the main issue I personally had with the deck was Life from the Loam. It's very click intensive when you play Magic Online. There's a lot of clicking and a lot of picking and pointing and stuff like that, and it slows things down to a halt. And I timed out twice because I was messing around with Life from the Loam so much. Admittedly, those games that I timed out had 30-minute clocks. But the deck is not fast. Even if you ramp out like crazy, the deck is not fast, and Life from the Loam just slows it down even more. So I'm not a huge Loam fan, but I'll be honest, you have to play Loam if you want to play Borborygmos. At least this Borborygmos. You can play the other one, and you don't need Loam at all. Those are my two big issues. The two cards, Valakut is in here. It's in here somewhere. The two cards that are not in the deck, and I might not even own, honestly, are Seismic Assault and do I own you? Oh, I do own Seismic Assault. Great. I just didn't think I needed it, honestly. And there's a big difference between lightning bolting somebody and shocking somebody. If you were really concerned about Borborygmos getting tucked, or you were playing against a bunch of tuck effects, you could put Seismic Assault in there. And honestly, it's not bad. I just didn't feel like I needed it at any particular time. it's your backup Borborygmos, essentially, is what it is. Obviously, it doesn't combo with Keen Sense and Snake Umbra, but it's a consideration. I didn't use it. Feel free to throw it in. The other card that could be played is Prismatic Omen, mainly, specifically to combo with Valakut. I never had color problems with my mana, so my problem with Prismatic Omen was that it needs Valakut in order to really be effective. Other than that, it just kind of sits there and does nothing for you other than cause problems when you're trying to tap mana. If you really wanted to go this route with Prismatic Omen, you should probably put crop rotation in the deck so that you can have better chance of grabbing Valakut or Expedition Map or Sylvan Scrying. All those cards would directly be able to get you Valakut, and then when Prismatic Omen comes around, you would have a better shot of grabbing it. I'll be honest, like, the deck sort of builds itself. Like, there's not a whole lot of differentiation, I think, between a lot of the Borborygmos decks. Because after I put this together, I kind of looked at other decks, and a lot of people kind of came up with the same ideas. Abundance and Sylvan Library, Rebel Hulk, Avenger of Zendikar, and stuff like that. Maybe more ramp, maybe more lands. The variations that I did see were ones that had like 50 lands instead of just 42. But aside from the fact that Life from the Loam is kind of a pain in the ass to use online, or at least I found it to be, the deck performed fairly well. It did sometimes feel a little dirtily, and I don't know. At least one of the videos I posted, you could see me like complaining about how I don't really like the deck that much. It's okay. My main issue, aside from Life from the Loam, is that it doesn't feel very Gruul to me. It doesn't feel very aggressive creature-based deck, but it's definitely different, and it is a powerful deck that can do some nutty stuff. So anyways, hope you guys enjoyed that. Hope you guys enjoy Land Week. Check it out, and any suggestions and things that I missed, feel free and let me know. All right. Thanks, guys.